Okay, guys, good afternoon, everyone. So, just a quick announcement. In the first lecture, I tried to remember that I told you about formative assessment. That's supposed to be 24 hours or 36 hours, something like that. Isn't it? Okay, so your formative assessment will be 50 minutes. That will be in class. So if you look it into your timetable, you can see somewhere in the middle you have one formative assessment before the quiz one, let's say the formative assessment one. So that is, if I said like it will be over the weekend, you have to, it's an open book exam, and it should be in over the weekend. You have to do it whenever, how much time you want to do it, you can do it. But the time is 45 minutes, and that 45 minutes is the class time, the lecture time. So you can do it anywhere, either here or either in your room, wherever you want to. But in 50 minutes, this formative assessment is an open book exam, and you can do it as much as you can, like in a 50 minutes. And whenever you get above 70%, then you have done. So you can repeat it as many times between that particular zone of 50 minutes. And once you cross 70% marks, you have done. Okay. So today I'll cover this endoparasiticides drugs. These drugs are normally active against helminths, for example, nematode, trematode, and cystode. And once they covered these helminths, we call them anthelmintic drugs. But some of the endoparasites, like protozoans, these are also endoparasites. The drugs they covered are antiprotozoal drugs, and most of these will be covered in your protozoan lectures by Kamil. So we can cover the anthelmintic drugs today in this lecture. Okay, so first thing first, you have a point solution. So you can put this PTHB505. That will be the session code or ID. So you can use that one for the we can do some review sessions. And I always prefer to do the review session each lecture, and this session ID will be your ID in my lectures. So I will always like to ask or discuss some questions during the lectures, and you can use the point solution and this ID, and you can answer these questions during the lecture time. Okay. So learning outcome, you will understand the terms and the choice of antiparasitic drugs in this lecture. The major group of anthelmintics will be covered here. So what is the spectrum of activities of these anthelmintic drugs, and what is the major toxicity concern involved by the use of anthelmintic drugs? So three main themes will be covered here. Terminologies used for the antiparasitic drugs as a whole, consideration for the use of antiparasitic drugs, and the major class of anthelmintics will be covered in this lecture. So, terminologies used for the antiparasitic drugs, there's a number of different terminologies you will be here in your clinic or whenever you move on in your practice. For example, label drugs or extra label drugs. Drug toxicity, that is very common terminology you will be here in a couple of times. Trade name, what is the trade name of the drug? What is the generic name of the drug? Routine of drug administration, like how you give the drug, is it oral or some parenteral or topical application? What will be the treatment plan? For example, what is the difference between therapeutics, prophylactic, as well as strategic treatments plans, and category of parasiticides. For example, what is mean by endoparasiticides, ectoparasiticides or adenticides. The category of anthelmintics will be covered in here, like nematocides. What type of drugs will be act as a nematocides, cystocides, or flucocides? So let's start with the labeled drugs. This is what you can see in the drug bottle that is labeled. For example, which host this drug will be approved? What is the efficacy of this drug? What species of parasite this drug will be covered, and what particular stage of the parasite this drug will be work. So these are the number of things you will be find in the label of this any of the drug you will be work on, and what is the recommended dose. So that's really important, and what will be the withdrawal time for these drugs in the case of the food animals, because these animals we use for the meat as well as milk purposes. On the other hand, the use of the extra label drugs, especially in the USA, that is based on the Animal Medicinal Drug Use Clarification Act and the FDA regulations. And veterinarian, and you are the person who can be use this extra label drugs, because you have a authority to be use that drug. Why? Because you will be you have a connection with the client, and you can first establish the good relationship with the client to be convince him that this extra label drug is useful for this particular parasitic disease, and you have to make some appropriate diagnosis to be more clear that why you are using this drug, and you should be ensure the proper dose, treatment record, and the withdrawal time of this drug. So these things are really, really important when you will be use any extra label drug in any of the parasitic disease you want to be you want to be work on, or you want to be work with your farmers. So when this extra label drug will be used, when you need it if the label drug is not available for that particular disease. That's the first thing. Or if the label drug shows any resistance, so they are failed to work in any particular group of parasitic disease. So these are the most important point you will be consider when you use the extra label drugs. And also you should be dig out some proper data that this extra label drug is useful for this particular disease or not. So these are the points you have to be think about before using these extra label drug. In goats, these extra label drugs is very common. The reason is, if you can see in the ruminants, most of the label drugs will be says that, oh, this is useful for the sheep, and in the goat is very few examples. So it's very common that these extra label drugs are using in goats, and also in the dogs and cats. Most of the important parasites you already covered by Dextrin in the previous lectures, like hookworm, trichoris. So the drugs are labeled, but few of the parasites, they are uncommon in dogs and cats. So in this case, extra label drugs will be useful, and normally the veterinarians use the extra label drugs with the uncommon group of parasites in dogs and cats. Okay, so toxicity. There's a different type of toxicity, direct toxicity, that include the therapeutics index. What is this therapeutics index? So this is the ratio in which the drug cause or affect in the term of the death in the case of the animal study. If you study the animals, you see how many animals die due to the adverse effect of this drug. Or in the case of human, the toxicity will be happen in the case of human. So this is how the therapeutics index you can calculate. More the therapeutics index, the safer the drug is. That's the thumb rule. So you will be always consider if the therapeutics index is higher, the drug is safer for this animal. Indirect toxicity, that includes like idiosyncratic reaction. What that is, in this case, you can only predict when the animal become reacted. For example, like some people or maybe animal become react with the penicillin. So this is, you will only know when the animal become reacted. So that is called the idiosyncratic reaction. Sequel to treatment, what does that mean? So sequel to treatment mean is, if you treat some animal, for example, Ascaris, you have seen the big worm of Ascaris in your previous lecture. Once you treat these worms, they are very big one and they make an impaction in the large intestine. And once it happens, it means that they will be stuck up there and the treatment is done, but this is a sequel of that treatment. Also, in the case of this heartworm treatment with milrosamine, for example, so because heartworm is also stuck up in the pulmonary arteries of the near the heart, and what happen if you treat it, the parasite die there and they cause the pulmonary thromboembolism. So this is also one of the sequel of the treatment of a number of different drugs. So these are two of these examples I come with. So therapeutic plans. So different type of treatment plans will be there. First is therapeutic treatment plan. What does that mean? You can treat the current infection. Animal has become infected and you see this infection and you treat it. That's it. This is the therapeutic treatment plan. So what is meant by the strategic treatment plan? In this case, the treatment plan will be strategically different time interval to provide the optimal control. What is the example of that one? For example, some of the parasitic diseases like, let's say, fissulosis, we'll talk about more in detail in the next lectures somewhere in the middle when I'll come with the trematodes. So the infection is very much on the particular season. So this strategy treatment plan will be worked there, that you have to treat the animal at that particular time point or the prevalence at the time when the prevalence will be high for that particular disease. So this is called the strategic treatment plan. Prophylactic treatment plan, as it said, you don't want to see the parasite, you want to treat it. So deworming is one of the example. You have seen in the previous lectures treatment plan for the deworming plan for 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks. So this is the prophylactic treatment plan. So these are some of the product. The example of some of the product used as a prophylactic treatment in a number of different hosts. Okay, so what is meant by the generic name of the drug or the trade name of the drug? Generic name is the name that the veterinarian, you know that this what is the formulation of this particular drug. On the other hand, trade names are the brand name. These are the name normally clients know. They don't know most of the time the generic name, and different companies have a different trade name with the same formulation, but the name are different by different company. For example, ivermectin, this is the generic name. And there's a number of different companies, they make the ivermectin with the name of Ivomec, Heartgard, Zimectrin. So these are some of the example of the trade name. Fomendazole, benzimidazole group, Penicure, Safeguard, Parental, Strongide. So these are some of the example of a difference between the trade as well as generic name. Okay, so route of administration. There's a number of different routes you will use these drugs: oral route, tablet, chewable form, liquid, paste, in water. So number of different way you can use in the oral route. Topical application that include pour on or spot on. Some parenteral application, injectable, intravenous, intramuscular, subcut. Frequency of drug, you should know about the drug will be used on a daily basis or monthly basis or once you need it. So these are the number of different terms you will be go through in your in once you will be deal with these drugs. Okay, so anyone has any question? Okay, so category of parasiticides. So there's a different type of parasiticide drugs, endoparasiticides. The endoparasiticide drugs are the drugs, they always kill the internal parasites. Ectoparasiticides, if you heard this term, it means that this drug will be kill the external parasite. So sometime you heard the term called adectocides. It means that this drug will be kill the external as well as internal parasites. And ivermectin or melbomycin, these are the microcephalorectone. We covered that one later on. These are one of the best example that this drug kill the external as well as internal parasites. So category of anthelmintics that include like nematocides. These drugs will be killed nematodes. Flucocides, these drugs will kill the flukes. And cystocides, these drugs will be kill cystodes. Okay, so there's a number of different methods to control the parasites. So we'll cover these methods more in detail in our control of parasite lectures later on, especially raise these animals in the parasite-free environment, how we can do that, administer the parasite-specific vaccines. So these things we will be covered there. However, the biological control and chemotherapy, especially, we will focus today on anthelmintic drugs. So we will be covered that one today. For example, let's start with some biological control. So these are some of the controls. These are the feed additives farmers use, especially in the ruminants. They use it to control the parasites. And nematophagous fungus, that is one of the examples. In these feed additives, they called, for example, this biowarma. They put it into the feed, and they want to control these parasites. How this fungus control this parasite, that is really interesting, because this fungus will not kill these parasites, but this fungus will trap these parasites. Look it into this fungus, and the parasite is trapped in this nematophagous fungus. So this is one of the example how this biological control strategies work. So here is some 3D structure where you can see again this parasite nematodes will be trapped by this fungus, and here is more clear. So this is trapped here, here, and here. So this is one of the other examples. So this is the way how these nematodes are trapped by these fungus, and they normally put it into the feed, and that will be work in this way. So this is one of the biological strategies to control these parasites. Okay, so anyone has any question? Okay, so then I have a question. You can take your point solution out. And see if this session ID is working for everyone. Yes? Okay, so what is the name of the fungus that trap these nematodes? Oh, it's supposed to be 30 seconds, but I forgot to put it in 30 seconds. Anyway. Okay, great. So yes, so this is some of, I always prefer to go with the review session during the lecture. That will be really useful for you to be understand what we are talking in each of our lecture. Okay, so let's start with the anthelmintic drugs. So there is a number of different drugs will be covered today, and today's lecture will be focused on anthelmintics. These are the three major class of anthelmintics, and these are the most important drugs. You always be work with these drugs once you go into the clinic. And you heard most of these names in your previous lecture with dextran, like benzimidazole drug. Benzimidazole is the group, and these are the number of different drugs covered in this group: fenbendazole, oxbendazole, albendazole, tricobendazole. There's a lot of different zole group in this benzimidazole group. Ivermectin and milbomycin. This is a microcyclolactone group, and there's a number of different drugs in this group, and the first line will belong to ivermectin, and ivermectin is the drug in this group, and moxidectin and milbomycin oxmine is the milbomycin group. In the third group is membrane depolarizer. Especially, there's a number of different, two groups are most important in this membrane depolarizer. For example, imidothiazole group, and the most important drug in this group is levamisole and tetrahydropyrimidine, and the two most important drugs in this class is parental and morantal. So these drugs classes share the same mechanism of action and resistance, but within the group, not like benzimidazole and ivermectin has the same mode of action. No, not at all. Benzimidazole, all these drugs between this benzimidazole group has a very similar mode of action and resistance mechanism. Okay, so let's start with the benzimidazole. So these are the number of different drugs in this group. What these are, SA and all and H mean. So R mean is these drugs will be useful for the ruminant or work for ruminants. H, horses, and SA is the small animals. So this is how these drugs will be work. And thiobendazole, this is the first drug was discovered in this group a couple of years back, maybe 3 decades. And now is a very few thiobendazole drugs are available in the market. There's a new drugs comes in, especially fenbendazole, tricobendazole. So these are the number of different drugs are now available to control the parasites and especially the helminths. So for the mode of action, we will cover the mode of action of these drugs, but that is just for your information. You will not hear anything related to the mode of action in your exam. This is just for your information how the benzimidazole drug work. So normally this drug bind into the beta tubulins. These beta tubulins are responsible for the polymerization of microtubules. These are the microtubules, and the red color indicate these benzimidazole drugs. And once they bind here, they will stop the polymerization of these microtubules. If the resistance is there in this beta tubulin, we know that which particular mutation in beta tubulin is responsible for the resistance. Once the mutations comes up, this drug, red color drug, is not bind, and that is a benzimidazole. If that will not bind, the microtubule formation will be continue, and the parasite will survive. If the mutation is not there and the drug bind, it will be stop this one, and the parasite will die. This is how this benzimidazole drugs mode of action as well as mechanism of resistance. But you should be know very clear about the toxicity and the spectrum of these drugs. So let's start with the toxicity of the benzimidazole. This drug is really, really safe, and the therapeutic index is between 10 to 100. So what I said about the therapeutic index? Sorry?
The higher it is, the safer it is.
Yes. So it's very, very safe drug. Sometime This drug will be, if you use the elevated dose over the multiple days, maybe cause toxicity, but overall is a very, very safe drug. So this drug is always come in the oral administration. There is no injectable form of this drug is available in the market. So this is only oral, and that's why we called it a white wormer. It is insoluble in water, but some of the formulation, especially in the poultry and swines, they are available, and they use that one along with the water. It's a very cheap drug, is not expensive at all, but unfortunately resistance is one of the biggest issue against this drug in all over the world now. Okay, so Spectrum is a very nice drug, but as I said, resistance is one of the major challenge now with the drug. Is a broad spectrum. This drug group is work with the work on the nematocides. Nematocide means the drug that works against the nematodes. So this drug will be, all of these groups, drug within the benzimidazole group work in nematodes. Some of these drugs like fenbendazole and albendazole group will be kill the tapeworms, and that is worked on the cystocides. And some will be worked, especially tricobendazole is the drug of choice for the fistula, is a flucoside, and we will cover the fistula in our trematode lectures, especially in these fistulas. These are the liver fluke in ruminants. So this is a very diverse and very, very big spectrum. This drug has a very broad spectrum and covered these nematodes, cystode, and flukes, and also some protozoals activity like benzimidazole and fenbendazole. They kill the giardia. So this is how this drug work, and also this drug has work into the larvae. So at the moment, if we talk about here in this side, we're talking about to kill the adults, but this drug also killed the larvae of these because larvae is a different stage as compared to adult. However, as I said, the drug resistance is one of the extremely common problem in this drug class. Sheep, goat, cattle, horses, all these hosts shows resistance against this drug, and is a global problem now. Okay, so let's start one other review session with your point solution. So what is the best statement describe benzimidazole? Okay, so this is a white suspension in the liquid form. Okay, so the second will be covered the ivermectin or merbomycin. These are the microcyclactone, one of the miracle drug discovery of this century. I will let you know why it is. So, but before that, these are the drug. For example, ivermectin will cover ivermectin, duramectin, eprenomectin, and silamectin, and you can see this ivermectin work in all the animal groups like small animal, large animal. So this drug work everywhere. Merbomycin is include moxidectin and merbomycin oxamine. So that is used in small animal, and moxidectin again for all animals. So the moxidectin and ivermectin, they work in all the animals. So why I said this drug? So Dr. William Campbell, He's the person who discovered this drug, and he was get the Nobel Prize for the discovery of this drug. This drug is normally how they discover it. They get it from the antibiotic-like compound like this streptomycin. This is a soil-dwelling bacteria. So this is one of the most perfect anthelmintic drug class will be considered and was discovered. But the beauty of this drug is this drug also work to kill the bacteria. So, and the other important thing, this drug is act into the internal as well as external parasite, and we will cover the external parasite like ticks, mites, and in our after the midterm lectures. So, for your information, this drug bind into the glutamate chloride channels, and that cause the hyperpolarization of the neuromuscular junction. Once it happens, it causes the paralysis of the pharyngeal as well as somatic muscles. So the difference between the mode of action and the resistance of benzimidazole with this drug is this drug not cause any mutation in the glutamate chloride channel. But recently, over 2 years back, I worked in this group. We spent like 5 years to understand what is the mechanism of resistance of this drug, and we published this work in Cell Report. I'm somewhere here. So we identified this CKY1 gene, that the upregulation of this gene is responsible for the resistance mechanism of this drug. Why this discovery is important? Because we don't have any information to understand that any particular form shows resistance against ivermectin. What is the resistance status? How much percentage of resistance of that drug in the form? So we know with the benzimidazole, we can easily tell the farmers that this is the resistance status based on beta tubulin mutation, but we can't able to tell them the resistance status based on the ivermectin. And this is the first time we discovered this CKY1 gene is responsible for the resistance mechanism of this drug. So toxicity of this drug is linked with in the case of the mammal, it linked with the GABA-gated ion channel. That is normal. These channels are present in mammals in the CNS. Normally, in the mammals, like the host, this drug will not cross the blood-brain barrier if you use that one in the lower dose rate. So it means that if the drug do not cross the brain, it can't cause any toxicity. On the other hand, if you use into the higher dose, it will cross the brain and it will cause toxicity even in the host, right? So what will be the toxic dose of this drug? It is normal. The toxicity occur at the dose of 100 microgram per kg. So that is really important for you to understand. In the case of the heartworm treatment plan, because this is the drug of choice in the case of heartworm microfilariae treatment plan, so we normally use 6 to 12 microgram per kg. That's why this is safe drug to be used in the heartworm. But some other group of parasite, if the dose is accurate and less than to cross the blood-brain barrier. Previously, this drug was also used, as I said, is used into the ectoparasite. And Demodex is the example here. Demodex is the ectoparasite mite. So this drug was used, but in a higher dose, and that caused toxicity. But now there is a new drug like isoxazoline that is available in the market, and the use of ivermectin is now going down. Even the veterinarians are not using anymore. They use oxazoline. That is the best option here. So that's why the toxicity effect goes down in the case of the treatment of Demodex mites. So the toxicity especially in dogs, one of the best example here is the border collie. The toxicity is very common in border collie, and some other animals, dogs can also be shows the toxicity, but the border collie is the most important one. So how it's happened in the dog? This PGP, this is the P glycoprotein genes. They can be lead to the leakage of the blood-brain barrier and allow the drugs to enter the brain of the dog. So this is how this drug cause toxicity in the case of border collie and some other dogs. So as far as the spectrum of this drug, very much effective against most nematodes as well as arthropods. It means that an endoparasites and ectoparasites. It is not effective against the trematodes, cystodes, and protozoans at all. Very potent. Dose is in microgram per kg. High safe margin in most of the animal. If you use in a lower dose, will not cross the 100 microgram per kg. So let's start with some other review session here. So what is the best dose of ivermectin to prevent heartworm infection in dogs? Okay, so yes, 6 to 12 microgram per kg. So what is the best statement describe the spectrum of ivermectin or milbomycin? So it is effective against most nematode and arthropods. Okay, so membrane depolarizers. So we covered today here is imidazoles that include levamisole. Is the extra labeled drug used to treat the heartworm mycophlary. Tetropamidines that include parental and merental from the small animal, horses and swine, and the merental is for the ruminants. So these two drugs have a very similar type of mode of action, acted into the nicotinic agonist and depolarize the neuromuscular junction and cause the spastic paralysis of the worm. So levamisole, one of the most important drug that is normally used for ruminants, is not expensive drugs, acted into the nicotine acetylcholine receptors, is a broad spectrum nematode. However, the therapeutic index is low, 3 to 5. So these drugs most likely to cause toxicity if you go with the overdose. Tetrahydropyrimidine, parental is the drug used against the monogastric animal like horses, swine, and dogs and cats. Merental, that will be for the ruminants covered in cattle, sheep, goat, and sometime in buffaloes. Broad spectrum nematicides, this drug is mostly work on the nematode parasite and very safe drug. The toxicity is a very low toxicity and the therapeutic index will be high. So what is the best statement describe the therapeutic index of levamisole? Okay, so cause toxicity is if used overdose, so it's really important. So you should know the toxicity, what is the toxic effect of the levamisole. It's really important. So let's start with the three new class of drugs like cyclodipsipeptide, include imidapsides, amino acetonitrile derivatives that include monopentol and sprinadol that include duramectin. So we'll cover that one quickly from here. Aminodapside is isolated from the fungus Mycelia sterile. This is a broad spectrum nematocides, and it causes the paralysis of the parasite. And Profunder is the trade name of this drug, and come along with the praziquantel. We'll cover the praziquantel later on. That is that they claim that imidapside will be covered in chylostoma or toxocara, and the label with the praziquantel covered with the diphylidium caninum and tinea. These are the cystode. So these drug will be normally sold in a number of different parts of the world in a tablet form, and this is the drug of choice for the treatment of the multi-drug resistance hookworm, and I think Dexton will cover that one. And in the USA, because the tablet form is not available, it is used as a feline topical product, because in the feline they use in a topical application. So in USA, this drug used as an extra label drug to treat the multi-drug resistance hookworm. Monopentol is the only drug in this amino acetonitrile group. Zolex is the trade name. This drug acts into the acetylcholine receptor, cause flaccid paralysis, and this drug will be sold only for the sheep, treatment of the sheep. And this drug come along with the abomectin. This is an ivermectin group in cattle in different part of the world. Duraquental is the only drug with this in sprinadol group. This drug come in market as a StarTech, and this drug also used for the treatment of sheep, and come with the abomectin in a combination of abomectin in different part of the world. So I can leave this one here for you to go through later on because of the time constraints. So let's start with some other common anthelmintic drugs: arsenicals, melosamine, isoquinolones, nitrophenolic compound, silicylanides compound, benzeno, sulfonamides compound, and isothiocyanates. So these are the number of different compounds. Well, we will cover that one quickly. Melosamine is the drug of choice for the heartworm adult, and the drug will be available in the name of the Durabin in USA. Isoquinolone, these are the praziquantel, and the epsiprental. These are the two drug class in this group, and these drug is only used against cystode and fluke parasites. So kill these two parasites, and this drug is the treatment of choice for the fluke in small animal, as well as the treatment of choice for the tapeworms. So these drugs are used against the fluke as well as tapeworm. Nitroxanil, chlorsanol, closental, oxyclosanide, and nitrosicinates. So these drugs are normally used as a flukocide. So these drugs are the treatment of choice for the flukes. Chlorsanol is the example. That drug used against the fistula hepatica treatment, and nitrosicinates also used for the fistula hepatica treatment plan. Okay, so some other uncommon drugs. These are not very much common, but available in the market is the piperazine, organophosphate, diethyl carbamazine, dichloroform, and butyl chloride, and toluene. So these drugs are very, very uncommon, but they are available. Some are available, some are in not available. Like piperazine, they are available in the counter. and normally used against the ascaris, but is not very much. Is a very rare now. Is very hardly veterinarian use this drug. Organophosphate is not using anymore. The reason is the safety margin is really toxic, so it's not using anymore. So diethyl carbinazine again is a very old product. Sometime long ago, this drug used to treat the heartworms, but is not a good choice at all nowadays, because new drugs comes in, so there's no need for that. So these drugs are no longer in use, but still available in the market, like dichloroform, dibutyl chlorides, or toluene. So these are some of the other drugs are no longer in use. So these are some of the combination. Once you will see it, we will talk about what is the advantage of using a drug combination in our control lecture. So these are some of the combination of the number of different drugs available in the market. Okay, so we covered a lot of different drugs today. So yes, you can't be able to memorize all these drugs. Is not our aim for you to memorize. But what you need to do, just look it into the red text, which I showed up in the slides. That is really important. But you should know about the toxicity of these drugs. You should know about the spectrum of these drugs, and you should know about which drug belongs to which particular group. Like benzimidazole group, which drugs are the part of the benzimidazole group. Ivermectin group, which drugs are part of ivermectin, which drugs are the membrane depolarization. So these are the important point you should be know, but you shouldn't be go through the mechanism or resistance mechanism of these drugs. Okay, so thank you very much. Any question before we can finish up here? No? Okay, thank you.